Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yeah. Problem is you kind of run out of material. I mean, there's always more, but some of it's so obscure and like ridiculous when you think about it that it's not really fun to talk about because you can't even suspend your disbelief enough to try and present it as anything other than a joke. Yeah. Oh, wait a second. Chester, I think you're muted on the stream. I'll talk then. I did not know John was even expecting a baby. Is it his baby or is it just a baby that he is around? Gotcha, gotcha. Well, that's good. I'm very happy for him. Um, yeah, it's very good to hear. We're gonna talk a little bit about some news. Then we're gonna get right at that heart of Santa Claus. I'm going right for his soul today. I'm going for where he comes from and the horrendous creature that he comes from, at least by modern standards, that most of us think of as a very good
All
being.
right.
It's going to be interesting.
I think it will be. The old God stories are a lot of fun anyway. A
Oh
lot
yeah.
more fun than what we got these days. I mean, God, we're boring. But yes, I know I'm muted. I fixed it. I don't know what's going on with all this stuff. It's working now. But there's two problems that have happened. One, Microsoft update.
Yeah, that's a big
Uh,
problem. Yeah,
yeah,
Microsoft.
and you notice that now with the Microsoft update, you must take it. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I've noticed they don't ask me anymore.
No. Yeah,
Interesting.
and you can't even run your computer and run stuff unless you do it. They have some block in there where unless you update, you can't use it. And it's like, what's that all about, dude? But that's what so that's problem one. Problem two is frickin' YouTube. I
Yep.
don't know what the hell's going on to YouTube. Can one of you guys over there in the chat, can someone see if you can post a link? Can we see if that has gotten repaired? Any
Let's
link, it
see.
doesn't matter.
We'll
Give us.
post a link to Trump's Twitter. Let's see if it works.
Oh, that'll be good. Let's just go right to the heart of the thing. All right.
Nope. Immediately deleted it.
Wow. So I don't know. YouTube has got problems going on. Of course, that might just be us. We're probably on a list, which is really shocking to me. I mean, what we got less than 1,000 views, and we get about what
Hmm.
30 people in here live, and maybe 60 or so will watch it overall, which is awesome for what we're doing. But why would they care? Why would they care? But they do. But it is
They
what it
sure
is.
seem to. They
Yeah.
sure seem to be very interested.
So no more links for us. Do me a favor and try to link something really nice, like some kind of child charity. See if that works.
Let's see. How about
Hanukkah for orphans. How about that one?
here? We'll try this one.
Why'd you have to go there, Chester? How come it has to be Hanukkah, Chester?
Let's
Okay.
see. Is it there? Nope. They
Nope.
have shut off all links. It seems because you won't even let me send one to the Salvation Army.
Aw. Now that's just unchristian. Which might be the point. Here, try this one. Who is the most dank of all gangster rappers these days? Did I say that properly? Was that proper lingo?
You said something. I don't know if it was proper.
I said something. Try to put in a what's that? Takashi, that idiot. Yeah, see if you can put him in. Let's
Oh
see.
God, no, no, thank you. I would rather not curse my Google algorithm with that search.
What an idiot, dude. I mean, God, that's one thing. I'm a bit older than you are, so I grew up through the era of hip hop. It came up
Yeah.
during when I was perfect timing for me. I kind of fall in that generation where hip hop and video games and such things are kind of in my wheelhouse. It's part of my generation. And hip hop when it first came out, it was fun, dude. It was about
Hmm.
dancing and bright colors. It was happy. It wasn't anything nasty. And then started going downhill. People started getting angry. It became this gangster rap and being hateful toward people, especially women, all about getting money. It just keeps going downhill, downhill, downhill. And now we come to the point that you have this Takashi thing, whatever the hell he is. And what's this? This nasty hoe that's the big thing right now. What's her name? Cardi B, is that her name?
Oh yeah.
Jesus.
Hmm.
My goodness gracious. Things have gone downhill. They've gone way downhill. But it is what it is. Gang gang. I don't know what that means, cult video film video. I don't understand gang gang. I don't. If Booster was here, he'd know. He's my connection to the youngins, the youth of America. Even though he's in New Zealand, but he seems to know a lot about America. I don't know why. Have you figured that out yet?
It's because yeah, actually, he told me pretty much because New Zealand's culture is basically just America's culture.
Oh
They
wow,
don't really have their own stuff too much. It's pretty much just copy paste.
that's pretty sad. That's pretty
Yeah.
sad. Yeah. Well, anyway, before I jump in and look at the news today, do you have anything specific you'd like to mention or talk about?
Nope.
Okay,
Not
good.
particularly.
Well, Cultfin Video was telling me the gang gang means high. Oh, well, I'm really out of step. Shogunat says, "Gang gang, isn't that the China spy who slept with Eric Swalwell?" I think her name was Fang Fang. But close enough, dude. Hello, Shogunat. Cultfin Video, Roger Heller. We got Ara in here as well. Nice to have you guys. Well, let me go ahead and jump into this, and we're going to get into some, I think, funny news. Do I have any clue if a booster is going to wake up today?
I do not know. He has not answered me.
Okay. Well, that's all right. So let me go over here and share so that Thundero can see. And we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Fix this. There we go. And I got some fun things to talk about, and then we're going to do our Santa thing TFT at the end. All right, I'm going to start here. You guys know I like to start with a board game, and this one is kind of interesting. Now, Masters of the Universe, the board game. Now, I was never really into Masters of the Universe. I'm just too old. I was into Thundar the Barbarian and all that kind of stuff just before it. Masters of the Universe, I was a bit older. I was getting into girls and stuff like that, so I just didn't really watch Masters of the Universe hardly. I just missed it by like I don't know 4 or 5 years. But it's super popular. It sold a ton of toys, and there's a whole generation that just absolutely adores Masters of the Universe and rock on. Good for them. Now the here we have Simon, which I put this up here not only mention that there is a Masters of the Universe board game coming, but also to mention Simon itself. Now Simon originally started as Cool Mini or Not. There's a very interesting story with these guys. Many years ago, like back to the beginning of YouTube, I think, there was a website called Cool Mini or Not because there is a entire culture of miniature painting and even fabricating. Right? We have people in here that do this, like Elrod, for instance. He's always making his own little miniatures. We also had who's the other guy who's really good with all the computer stuff and 3D printing. Damn it, my brain. Anyway, they had this website where you could put up and they'd share pictures of miniatures they created or painted and stuff like that. And it was very popular. And then they started doing more and more. And then they decided to start working with a board game company to create the miniatures for the game. And then they started making their own board games. And as time went by, started making these badass games. I mean, badass stuff. Like Blood Rage, that's such an awesome game that they went and got modern on us, Thundero. They go get all
Hmm.
modernized, and instead of being cool, meaning not, they became Seaman, right? It's kind of like the idiots over the Sci-Fi Channel that changed themselves to to what is that? Sifi, 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 right? Well, anyway, their story is really cool. It's the American dream story. They started as something and they grew into something big. They're actually a huge name in board gaming world now, and they make really good games. They make a lot of money. So it's just one of those happy little stories, I think. And they seem to be really nice people over there too. And if you are interested in the type of games that use miniatures in your board game, these are the guys to go look at. Right, CMON or Cool Mini or not, but for them that they're developing a Masters of the Universe board game, they're also doing it kind of like we saw with the fifth edition of Dungeons and Dragons. They're sharing their design with the fan base, and they're talking and interacting as they design this game, up to the point where they're going to put the game out. Probably they usually do Kickstarters, but I think it's pretty cool, man, that they're allowing the fans to be involved in the design process. What do you think about that?
It's a pretty good idea. We'll see how well it turns out, though. It's a good idea. The problem is when you have that, when you do stuff like that, it often doesn't pan out the way people expect it to, because people are trolls and they will coordinate trolling very effectively.
Oh yeah, they will. Autism is real, dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's devastating. But it's a good example. I did mention with fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons they did that, and look what happened to fifth edition of Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, I don't want to knock it too hard because it is the best introductory board game, tabletop gaming system ever made. It really is great for getting the beginner and the masses in to sit down and play a one-off or a little short campaign of D&D. And that's a good thing. That's great because Dungeons and Dragons is fun. You're using your imagination, you're chatting with people, you're building your brain, all those kind of things are good. The problem is because they did build it by committee, they really got super dumbed down. Instead of being this just badass lance of an ultra geek gaming system, right? Which is what I would want it to be. But yeah, it's a fair point. Fair point. All right. Well, anyway, are you a Masters of the Universe guy?
Not really.
No.
I don't hate it or anything. It just doesn't tickle me.
No, no, it really fell in a certain generation, and they adore it, and I'm that's cool with me. I don't really have a problem with people who love their nostalgia. That's awesome, dude. Do that. I wish frickin' Bob Iger and that what is that Kennedy bitch's name? Kathleen, yeah, that one.
Oh yeah,
I
that one.
wish they had paid attention a little bit to the fact that people like nostalgia. That would have been good. That would have been good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every move she made was against nostalgia. Man, how dumb are you? Are you not? Can't you open your eyes and see how humans work? I mean, we're pretty easy to figure out if you just take a minute, right? I don't know, whatever.
Well, since we're speaking on old Star Wars, it looks like with the Mandalorian. I don't know if you watched the finale.
I did.
Looks like Favreau's either taken the task or has been given the task of fixing the Skywalker problem.
Yeah. Now I'm
So
going to get into
that's
that in a
good.
minute, so don't get ahead of me now. Don't you get ahead of me. All right. All right, let's move on from this. But like I said, I'm not a huge Master Universe fan, but I'm super happy for him. And if it's a cool game, I'll buy it. I'm all for it. So this is good. This is happy. We're starting with happy news. Happy news. All right.
Happy.
Now the next line of things, maybe not so happy. God damn. Go ahead, Thunder. Read this off, man.
Hang on 1 second. My screen went dark. Where are you?
Oh no, the world has gone dark. Cyberpunk has truly
Yep.
infested the internet.
There it goes. CD Projekt investors consider legal action over misleading information about Cyberpunk 2077.
There's a lot of news like this. We have executives who have either quit or were fired, complaining about what was pushed on them. You got creators complaining. You got fans seemingly not complaining though. People are saying it's buggy, but everyone that I've heard says it's a lot of fun, other than the haters. But the haters gonna hate, right? I that was a very that does that meme still work these days? That's an old one.
No, I mean, I've been playing it since it came out. I think it's perfectly fine. It's not as great as people were hoping it would be,
Yeah,
but it's not terrible either.
they
It's
came
a
out too
perfectly
early.
fine game.
It
Yeah,
looks
they
like they
should
need
have
another year or
released
two
it
in the
in
box.
March.
Yeah.
I would have. They probably could have got. They've even said they can do 1, 2 one or two more big patches should fix pretty much all the issues they said, and they're going to come out in January and February. So I bet if they would have waited till March, they would have had it all hammered out, and everybody would be a lot happier.
Yeah.
The problem is the messaging, like I had been saying, was wrong and really bad and misleading. They absolutely have a case. I hope it doesn't happen because I don't want CD Projekt Red to suffer for this. I want the
Oh,
people who did it at the company to suffer, but
yeah.
I don't want the developers to suffer who've made the greatest game of the last two generations easily with The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
I want those guys to be pushed up in the company so they can make more decisions. And whoever made these decisions, like the marketing and the saying things work great on the old system and all that nonsense, whoever it was, they need to be fired and probably maybe sued because that was obscene to say
Yeah.
something like that in public when it wasn't true.
Yeah. Yeah, well, no. First of all, hello, Willie Mammoth, over there in the chat. Nice to see you, dude. Haven't
Hello,
talked to you in a
hello.
while. You should come in and say hi, man. Yeah, see that the problem with that is there's a lot of people hating on CD Project Red because they don't toe the line politically. They're
Hmm.
going to just bury their claws in and try to destroy them as much as possible, dude. Because the thing is, the
Oh, of
only
course.
people complaining are investors, people who work at CD Project Red, and the hater mob in the media.
Well,
All the
there's in
other
fairness,
people,
there are some gamers who are very upset because of the way it launched. If you buy it on PC, it's pretty much fine. I mean, there's some problems, some weird glitches and stuff, but I've been playing it on PC since Jump, and I haven't had any trouble except frame rate issues,
yeah,
which again was a messaging problem from them because someone back in late summer I think it was put out these system requirements that weren't even close, not even kind of close for what we got just a few months later in the game. So somebody knew that that was wrong and still put
yeah,
it out there. Um, and that kind of stuff is largely unforgivable. And there are some gamers who are upset and did refund it because it just simply doesn't run well on the old systems. It just doesn't. There's
no,
no excusing it, and I don't think there's any real fixing it either. I just don't think it can. The PS4 and Xbox One can handle it the way you'd want it to be handled for modern gaming. So, and that's a shame. That's a tragedy. I didn't want to be right about this, but I kept saying there's something wrong. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was going to be woke nonsense. There's none of that, thankfully. But there was something wrong. I could just sense it. I could smell it in this development of this game, and it looks like I was right. Even though I love the game and I'm still playing it, I was just playing it before we started streaming. It's just there's so much nonsense going on with the way their messaging was with the executives and the board. I
yeah,
don't blame the developers, the actual workers, the engineers, and what have you. I don't blame them at all because they obviously were working their ass off trying to meet the demands of the people above them. People keep saying things like this game was in development for 8 years. No, it wasn't. It
no, it
wasn't in
wasn't.
hard development until like 3 years ago.
Yeah,
Calm down. And I think they'll fix it. And I think by spring of next year, which is when they should have released it, it'll be a much better experience for pretty much everyone involved.
yeah,
It will be far less buggy, far more stable, and I think they'll even add in some of the features that they had to cut late into the development cycle because they
right.
were just out of time.
Well, one of the problems they made Thundera was the fact that when they started out, they really had intentions of making an MMO. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to take the step
Mhm.
away from single player into MMOs, what they wanted to do. But then some executives like, no, 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 we need to have a main character. So they stopped everything they were doing, then they restarted. Then they were doing that, and then they come out and said, no, 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 we need to do something else. So they restarted this thing 3 times, dude. 3 times they restarted the development and creation of this game.
Right.
That's gonna put you back. And they have been talking about it and looking and working on it for 7 years. They have been, but they haven't been in the actual hardcore programming for that long. No.
Right. Correct.
The problem I think is they should have stuck to their guns and done what they wanted to do initially. Because one of the things I am hearing from everybody is, why isn't this an MMO? I hear that quite a bit.
Mm.
Why isn't this just an open world night city that you can run around and interact and do whatever you want to do? And I that's the same question I got. Yeah, but here we
Um,
are.
I mean, I would be fine either way. They are eventually, once they get through this horrible launch, they are going to have a co-op mode, unless they've scrapped that. Last I heard, they were still doing it. They were
Yeah.
going to release later. That was always the plan, and it will probably be basically similar to what you're saying there. Um, Maybe even like GTA Online, kind of, where you can just have a whole bunch of people on one server and just run around and cause chaos if you want. Uh, I hope that's the case, and I hope it works very well. And in fact, if it is, that could be the thing that really helps save their image and whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it, their brand, because they are in trouble right now,
They
and they
are.
need to make sure they don't screw it up. Lots of people need fired at the top. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't blame any of the developers or anything because they had to know the state they were putting it out in, but it's not their call, right? Their job's to make the code and make the game work. They can't decide when it gets shoved out the door if
Mhm.
it's, half the engine's missing or whatever.
They were
So,
desperate to get it out with the launch of the fifth edition, the
yes.
fifth generation, and that's ridiculous because if you want to be an actual gamer and play on badass stuff, get a freaking PC. Console
Yeah.
peasants.
Well, the
The
problem
hell?
is here's a perfect storm of screwed that
I
they
said
got.
it.
So they tried
I
to get
said
it
it.
out before the new consoles came out. Well, no one has any of the new consoles because you can't get them anywhere. They're all sold out. Then people are like, well, okay, well, just get a PC, like you just said. Good luck finding a video card. You can't find one. They don't exist. But not for 2 years. I went back to ones from 2018. Unless you want to spend markup of like 200%, they don't exist. Um, they hit a perfect storm with this darn COVID crap in manufacturing. Everything's on a short, so you can't get a PS5. Or if you can, you're lucky. You can't get an Xbox. If you can, you're lucky. You can't get a good video card, which you need a video card that's probably from 2019 and newer
Yeah.
to really run this game at nice sleek frame rate. Mine's older. I have everything turned down pretty much as low as I can, except for the textures, and I get an okay frame rate, better than a console would get, but it's still not smooth, right? Like it stutters, and if I turn the camera too fast in the middle of the city, I'll get a big frame drop. Um, and that's just my video card.
Yeah. Well, I have a
So you need
Zotac
one that's a little newer.
GTX, so I don't understand
Yeah.
those woes. But then
So
again,
you need
that's
one that's
a
a little bit newer,
that's
but
a
there's none out there. Unless you want to pay crazy markup, you're not going to find one.
oh yeah, that
And
was an expensive
it's a
card, dude. That was at least $1,000 just for the card.
Oh yeah, and that's the real problem they're having right now as well. It's just a perfect storm against them because you already have a frustrated market. People want the new consoles. They want to get the new Nvidia cards that are really good and really cheap, like price point wise. They really lowered the price somehow. I don't know how they did it, but for a brand new card, the fact that their best one I think is only like $1,200, that's insane. That's super cheap. Um, so they've really tweaked their pricing and got it down to a nice competitive level for pretty much everybody. Especially if you buy one of those cards, you're probably good for the next 4 years, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
but here's the
it,
thing though.
it's
You
it's kind
can't.
of a crappy situation for them.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but you also take in mind you're going to go buy a $500 PlayStation 5 and you think it's going to have that kind of performance? I mean, come on. Like I just said, my
Right.
card, which I bought a couple of years ago, that's $1,000 card, right? I
Hmm.
mean, there's some that have come out that are a bit better than it now, but that was the best thing you could buy by far when I bought this computer. How you think you're going to spend $500 on some little box that's going to have that kind of performance? It isn't. Even though it's optimized, it's not going to. I mean, people really need to start understanding, move away from it. And Xbox knows this. Microsoft understands this, dude. That's why
Hmm.
they have their whatever they call it, their Xbox, thing you can join for a certain amount of money a month to get free games every month. It's a really good deal, and you can
Yeah.
play. I can play that right here on my computer if I want. They get it. Microsoft gets it. PlayStation is banging that old horse, dude. You know?
Hmm. Well, I think the funny thing is I think as much as 10 years ago me would have hated hearing me say this, I think Nintendo has the right strategy
Yeah.
where they offer the cheaper platform that's designed for kids and families,
Mhm.
generally speaking, and it's not designed for hardcore gaming. Now you
No.
can do some on there, sure, but that's not really their market. That's a super niche thing you can do with their hardware, whereas the more hardcore stuff is pretty much only on PC now. At least if you want to be super competitive. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know there's some people who play like on phones and play on console, but largely the high end shooters and stuff, you're probably probably got a PC player is who you're dealing with. Even if they're using a controller, they're still using a PC just because the performance is so much better.
Yeah,
Um,
and you've made a good point there because the Nintendo Switch is $300. Well,
yep,
here in Japan anyway. I don't know what it is over there. But
I think
and
it's something like that. Yeah,
every kid in my school has a Switch.
yeah,
Everyone.
yeah.
You know how many of those
There's nothing
kids?
wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with it at all. But here's the interesting thing. I will mention PlayStation, which is a Japanese company, Sony, right? Most of
Hmm.
those kids don't even know what PlayStation is, dude.
Right?
That's
Yeah, that's an issue.
shocking.
Well, now you have things like smart TVs. You have even PlayStation does this, where you can stream to the PlayStation from a different device and play. Remote play is what it's called.
Yeah,
We're getting to a point where you really only need one central major device to do everything,
yeah. Just
because
call it a computer.
Bluetooth's so good and wireless and this and that is all so good. You just don't need seven devices for entertainment anymore. I don't need it at all. The only reason I even have a television is because my wife watches it. I don't need it. I don't watch it. I have my computer. I can do
Yeah,
everything I can do from there. I can do here better. So I think we're getting to that point. Now, there's always going to be people who, have like TVs and whatnot. I'm not saying TVs are going to go away. They're just the way that they're interfaced is changing, and it's been changing for at least a decade. I know a lot of people, like myself included, have no cable. The only cable I have is my internet cable. But other than that, I don't have any extra TV channels or any of that stuff because you just don't need them. You simply don't need them anymore. And more, you're going to get rid of more and more hardware to have the same experience because that's what they're doing. And that's what they've been doing for decades now. They're making it less and less. Like imagine going back 30 years ago and showing everybody a smartphone and how much you can do with a smartphone. It's insane. It's
yeah,
actually
it is.
insane what you can do, what you have in your hand there. A calculator, a radio, a TV, a movie screen. Some of
Library.
them have crazy, yeah, a library. Some of them have crazy cameras in them that are better than most digital cameras. It's insane what you can do with just that phone.
Yeah,
That idea of encapsulating everything into one device is coming to the home more and more and more
it is.
in home entertainment. And
It
I
is.
think you're going to start to see things like gaming consoles just kind of become a thing of the past.
I
They're
think
just
so.
not going to be necessary anymore.
Well, I mean, I basically took a computer and hardwired it into the TV. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm in the same situation as you. My wife watches the TV far more than I do, but
yeah,
she has access to whatever she wants now because I have the internet and I got a VPN, so I could be anywhere in the world.
hmm
It's a simple solution. Oh, by the way, remember how I was talking about like a year or so ago where I went and petitioned the city to
hmm
bring frickin' fiber optic into the village here over the mountain?
hmm
It's coming. I see crews
Must.
every day working on the road, bringing it up the mountain, dude. It's really cool.
What's it, Chester? What's it like to live in an advanced country? I used to. I don't anymore, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I
It
mean,
must be nice.
it is nice. It is nice, and more importantly, when they put something on the docket, they do it.
Well, now you're just talking crazy. All right, I
Yeah.
don't even know. I don't even know what those words mean anymore with politicians. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but I'd say by spring, I'll have fiber optic in the house, dude. Finally. Yeah.
Nice.
But let me check over the chat real quick. Roger says, I'm going to wait until I get a PS5 and then get this game. Maybe it will be my first game for me this time around after the patches. Yeah, you should always wait, dude. These days,
Yeah.
they always come out early. And
hmm
I'm being just being trollish here with the console thing. Consoles are fine. Enjoy them. Roger says, speaking of Nintendo, Chester, what do you think about Super Nintendo World? I think Nintendo is always the same. They're the most innovative company we have.
hmm
It's shocking, but it's true. They always are.
Yep.
They're always innovating. The problem is their executives can't shut their damn mouth and they keep putting their foot in their mouth and they screw it up, almost kill Nintendo. And then Nintendo has come out with some new innovation to save it again. Over and over, we keep seeing this, right? The same pattern. When are they going to learn? As far as Super Nintendo World, looks cool to me, dude. I think Nintendo's, as far as the actual software and the game creators, it's awesome. They just have an executive problem.
Hmm.
Bernardo the Beatnik says people should read more. I agree. More comics, sure. More everything. I'm shocked by the lack of education with the millennial and under groups in America. It's I don't know what the hell happened. What the hell happened, Thundero?
Um, that's a long story, but the short version is our schools have been utterly corrupted by the idea that everybody's equal at all things, and if you are exemplary in anything, you are basically punished in many schools for it. You're treated worse than the child who isn't that way. So a lot of children, a lot of young people never apply themselves because why if they're just going to get treated like everybody else? Why even push yourself past, this limit if
Yeah,
you get treated the same as the kid who eats glue? Like
yeah, no,
what am I doing?
you
What am I
get
wasting my time with?
you need the competition. But I mean, I don't understand what
Basically,
that has to do with
fellas.
what is the capital of Germany or what does H2O mean? Basic chemistry. I don't understand how they compete.
Basically, fellas, it's the bigotry of low expectations used in just
Yes.
a broad form. They just kids are they want them to think a certain way,
Hmm.
and it goes down to not meritocracy but mediocrity, and this is what we have now.
Yeah, well, you do realize I'm being facetious. I'm a teacher. We never ask a question that we don't know the answer to.
Well,
And of
Well,
course,
my parents were both educators, and
well, then they had you going in
so
circles, I'm sure.
so and so are my aunts and my
Well,
grandmother
you
and my
understand our
other
accent then.
aunts on the other side. I understand exactly how educators do things, but
Yeah,
how the system works is
yeah.
no longer, it doesn't pinpoint what students are good at and maximize their
no,
potential in that, and
no.
also give them the base mean that they can function in society. I've met kids who have left high school who could barely read and write.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
30% of
It's a
graduates in
problem.
America.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
well,
that's a tragedy, is what that is.
the reason
Hmm.
it's happening is because socialism cannot survive in an educated world. Therefore, they need to
Correct.
dumb down the population there so that they can get them on board with silly ideas, which they seemingly have been very successful. I mean, we're looking at half of the country voted for a dude and a lady who are actually against everything they're saying they are for. Right? So
Uh,
it's about reducing the intelligence of the population so that socialism might take over is what it's really about. It's Marxism 101.
yep.
Yeah. Anyway, let me continue with the chat before I move on here to the next thing. Hi Slick, by the way. Bullet says,
Hello.
nah, they have been saying consoles have been good going away since the PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube era. The one console future that will never come. You might be right. They have been calling the death of it for a while. It's
Hmm.
just the PC is becoming so much more universal now. We'll see. We'll see. Uh,
Um, I mean, there is a counterpoint to that. I'm fairly certain the PS2 outsold all of the modern consoles by a wide berth
oh, that was
in the same
popular.
time of
Yeah.
its life cycle,
Yeah.
which would indicate that less people are buying them because there's less need for them.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I understand his point, though. They might be in some form. I just personally think, and it sounds like Thundara agrees. I think Xbox is on the right idea. They're moving everything digital,
Yep.
and they're moving everything onto the PC. I think
See,
that's what's going to happen.
it's the right idea as far as the way the trend is going. I think it's the wrong idea for the consumer. As much as I love my Steam account and my GOG account and all these accounts now you have,
Yeah,
um, I don't like the fact that I have no actual control over my games.
yeah,
So if they change the rules where I'm not allowed to say the word red while talking about a hair color or whatever arbitrary nonsense they come up with next, and they just shut my account off because of it, well, then I just lost all those games that I have no way of getting them back.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's, well, I don't think you need it with GOG so much. I think because you pretty much, if it's on your computer, it's yours. But with Steam, you can lose your Steam account and lose access to all your games. Even no matter how much money you spend on them, they're gone now.
There is a hack for that. I didn't say that
Yeah, I know.
though. I didn't say that though.
There's a hack for everything.
There
The
is.
point is we shouldn't have to hack
Right.
when we could just have a disc in our hand or something similar and problem solved.
Yeah. And Joe says that, and the trees are all kept equal by hatchet, axe, and saw. Fair enough, dude.
Yes.
I wonder if I think, was he talking about people there? He might have been making innuendo. Anyway, let's move on here. Let's move on. That was a good conversation, though. Go ahead, Thundero.
Oh, Zack Snyder. Hang on, thing, get bigger. Zack Snyder reveals when Justice League arrives on HBO Max. I'm excited. Just another thing to disappoint everybody. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. I can I just say I don't care and move on? Can I do that?
Early 2021, so he's already almost done with the reshoots?
Sounds like it. Yeah. Sounds like it. I don't know. I'll probably check it out eventually, I guess. But
well, that's kind of the main reason I even got Cyberpunk is because I've been leery of it for so long that I wanted to play it and see if I was right. And I also wanted to play it. I wanted it to be, Witcher 3 Cyberpunk, basically, right? That level of awesome. It's not, unfortunately, but that's the main reason I did, is just because I kind of felt like an obligation because I've been so opinionated about it for a year now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, it's unfortunate. And Bullet, I get your point, dude. You might well be right. I feel it's moving in a different direction, but I could be completely wrong. You could be completely right. I think it's too early to tell. But yeah, I don't give a shit about this. Next, go ahead.
Oh boy. Yeah, she's what dashed those hopes. Margot Robbie dashes hopes for a Birds of Prey sequel. Wasn't the fact that it bombed utterly. I mean, it was basically a nuclear device dropped on the world, how much that thing bombed. No, it was Margot. Margot decided, nah, I just don't want to. I don't feel like it.
The problem you have with this is it wasn't a good movie. If it were a good movie with a great story, great action, great acting, there wouldn't be a conversation at all. No, I mean, for instance, just as a precursor to what I'm about to talk about, Mandalorian's final episode had a group of women taking a freaking cruiser with not one of them even getting hurt at all. Super Mary Sue shit going on, and people lost their shit over that episode because they still got to see Luke Skywalker. Spoilers.
Spoilers.
Well, I'm just saying you have a situation that Din Djarin is surrounded by women only, right?
Yep.
And those women went in easily and took that, where he was getting his butt kicked left and right, even though makes him more endearing. They don't get that, but I'm just saying, here you had a situation.
Maybe they do. Maybe that was the point.
Maybe that was the point. Yeah, that's a wink, wink at us, maybe. But my thing is that it was a good, fun story. No one cared. No one cared.
Correct.
So if you had done the same thing, it would have been fine.
All of those women were pre-established with believable stories, and they're not. Even though he made a joke, Mary Sue stuff. They were doing Mary Sue stuff. They're not Mary Sue's because they're established. We know where they come from. We know their background. We obviously they're Mandalorians. They've been trained. And the one that wasn't, the two that aren't a Mandalorians, one was a soldier in the war, the Republic drop shoulder, and the other one is a world-known or a galaxy-known criminal.
Sniper.
Like she's like galaxy-renowned as being one of the best snipers there is.
Yeah.
So all of these things were established before. So this scene where they're going through and kicking all this ass is earned by the reputation they've built from before. It's not just, hey, I'm here now and I'm awesome.
Yeah, no, that
didn't happen.
That's exactly true. Although I have to say I was a bit disappointed with Katie Sackhoff's acting in that episode. I hope she picks it up, dude, because I have a feeling Bo-Katan is going to be all of season 3, dude. I really hope she picks it up.
There was one scene when they were planning their actions that she was, I don't know why that was her direct. I've seen her much more natural.
Oh, yeah.
And she did not come off as natural, at least in that scene.
No, it was bad. Katie's usually pretty good.
Block of wood, but I like the episode because like Luke Skywalker and Boba Fett, and I'm okay with it. But I don't have a problem with the women going and kicking ass.
No,
I mean, I was down way back when the Bride was hacking and slashing, and Celine from Underworld was just mowing through people. that's fine
Yep.
as long as you give me a good character and a cool idea, not just trying to figure out why this person's such a badass.
Well,
And
and
all
you're
four of them are badasses.
well, it's true, and
Right.
you're fine with it because it isn't about them being a woman. It's just the character who happens to be female. Right?
Right.
It
Yep.
didn't matter, and that's the thing with the Mandalorian as well. We didn't care. Although I really hope Katie, because I know we're going to see more of her. I hope she picks it up though, because we know she can do better than that. We don't want to. We don't want to see more of that. Cara Dune is badass, and it's what a shock. An MMA fighter is actually can act a little bit enough. She could do enough that makes her endearing, right?
Hmm.
But the
Hmm.
point with this is, this was shit, dude. It was bad acting. And what is that dumpy little thing in the back? What is that?
What are you talking about?
He's talking about Birds of Prey. I was like, wait, what?
Oh,
I thought
I
he just
can't
took
see
us
what
for a
you're looking
ride
at,
for a
but
minute.
yeah, I saw Birds of Prey, and yeah. Okay then.
I don't know what that dumpy thing is, but of course you're not getting more of this. It's crap. Do better. Do better.
Yeah.
And why does Ewan McGregor need to be gay? Why? Why are we? Why is he the whole thing? He's trying to go in and get back his porn stuff. What the hell are you doing, idiots? Idiots. Absolute idiots. Of course, you're not getting any more Margot, but don't worry about it. You're going to be the new Jack Sparrow or Jane Sparrow, I guess. So what you worrying about? You got money coming in all over the place, baby girl. Moving on.
Ugh,
All right.
she's not a draw. Hollywood, hey, no,
No.
but she's not a draw.
No.
She's fine, but she's not. She doesn't bring in money. Just doesn't happen. What do we tell you?
Well, her shelf life's coming real soon here.
Yeah, unfortunately,
so.
yeah. See, I don't have any trouble with Margot. I think she's fine, girl. I don't have a problem with her at all. But it's just Hollywood misjudges stuff. And here's another example we're going to get into these next couple of articles. But Margot was a hit in the original Birds of Prey, which is another horrible movie, because of tits and ass. TNA
Yeah.
baby. She was a
Yes.
sexy little thing. That was the whole point of
What
it.
are you
That
talking
was a
about?
hit.
Suicide Squad or Birds of Prey?
Suicide Squad, the original Suicide Squad, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not the original, because there was an
Well,
animated version
yeah,
that was
that's.
badass.
That's yeah. They sold her, and she was a little over the top. But I mean, people really liked her, and then they turned her in like she looked like a fucking circus clown.
Yeah, no, they
Not
screwed it up.
not a Harlequin.
Yeah.
A circus clown.
Well,
I mean, just
they said that. Well, we didn't want to show too much skin because that's not what she's about. Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it was about. It was a bunch of teen nerdy boys wanting to bend her over the freaking kitchen table. That's what it was.
Well, even her old school suit is designed to maximize her sex appeal.
Yeah,
even without showing skin.
She doesn't have anything else. What do you expect? She's a freaking psychiatrist. It's the stupidest character ever created. What the? All right, don't give me. Don't do it. Don't get me started.
Don't get him on that path.
Jesus. Anyway, go ahead, Thundero.
Oh boy, here it comes! Star Wars writer Brian Young mocks the fandom menace for embracing Luke Skywalker.
Okay, and let's read another headline before we do. Just read this one real quick.
The Mandalorian season finale hints at grisly fate for Baby Yoda.
Okay, now
grisly
keep this in mind with these two headlines you're seeing here. I'm going to talk about this article more than this one. Well, but this was just two articles. I probably could have put 15 of them up because everyone's talking about the same thing. That this guy here is saying, you're a bunch of idiots. Favreau just started lining up to do in the trilogy. You guys bitch about the trilogy. This is the look it's going to be in the trilogy. What's wrong with you, you idiots? And he's being an asshole, right? Same thing with the grisly fate of Grogu, being that because we have the trilogy, that he's going to end ultimately will be dead because Luke fails. Luke and everybody failed. They all failed, right? But here's the thing you're not getting. John Favreau is not following the trilogy. It's quite clear he's not. He's going to take aspects of it, I think. The New Order, I think he's going to use it, although he might call it the New Imperial or something like that. But he is making a new thing. He is creating something that is not the trilogy. And so many idiots don't see it when it's clearly right in front of you. That's what Favreau's doing. And then all the rumors and all the noise is coming out of Disney saying that they are taking the Kathleen Kennedy's trilogy and moving it to Legends is clearly true. I don't get it. How do people watch the same thing I watch and come to a different conclusion? They're just stupid.
Unless at some point they do a huge about face on it, I think you're absolutely correct. I think watching that and watching that awesome build up to the reveal of Luke at the end of the episode and how he's just decimating those droids left and right like they weren't even there. These droids that, by the way, one of them nearly killed the titular character of the show with ease. And Luke's just chopping them up like they're confetti. That was awesome.
It was awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Favreau, for that. Luke Skywalker desperately needed it.
Thank you.
And
Mark did the voice.
Yes, he did. I think he's either been given, or him and Dave Filoni, I think his name's Dave Filoni, have just taken and decided they're going to fix the Skywalker problem. And these two gentlemen, whether you like Filoni or Favreau or not, they are obvious huge fans of George Lucas's Star Wars.
Yeah.
No question. They love the vision from the original trilogy. It's just all through The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. The way the things play out, the way the races or the species, or whatever you want to call them, interact with each other, the way the Empire behaves as obviously, not cartoonishly bad guys, but the bad guys. Just everything about it, the tone and tenor of it is correct and in line with what a Mandalorian character should be if you took a Mandalorian and put him in George Lucas's tone of Star Wars. It's amazing how well they've done it. I think that's why the show gets so much love, is because it feels right. Not even if the acting's always the best. It's not. Not even if the special effects are always great. They're not. But it just feels correct.
It's fun.
And it's fun. That's the whole point. So I think he's either taken it upon himself, or they've been given as you said, like, they're going to maybe eventually move that to Legends and then just basically decanonize it. And he's been given the ball to try and fix the mess they made, because there's no way they don't know the mess they made. They have to have seen it. Yeah. With the last movie doing so much worse than the movie before it, and both of them doing way worse than the first movie, that had to have, somebody at Disney has to care about that. I just don't know how we haven't heard from that person, but someone has to care about the fact that they lost $1 billion each movie. Like, that's a problem. And they hopefully are going to fix Luke, at least, even if they don't decanonize the Jedi. For me, that won't be enough, but for a lot of people it will. If they can contextualize why he became what he became, that would be enough for most people.
Yeah, well,
because the logical leap from Return of the Jedi to killing your nephew in his sleep, there's just what?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
What?
Yeah. No, the thing as well, though, that is another thing that these people clearly can't see. I don't know what the hell they're doing, because they're watching it with hate in their heart, I think, is what the problem is. But clearly, what Favreau is doing is he's going to be giving us the Thrawn trilogy, dude. That's what he's doing. He's bringing Thrawn. Yes. And that means we get Mara. That means we get Luke kicking ass, which with this deep fake stuff makes it easy for them to do. That means we're going to get a whole bunch of kids in his academy who are not murdered by some mysterious thing, which they don't even really cover. That's what's happening. And they're also going to be telling the story of the Mandalore, but they're doing many different series. And the whole ultimate thing is going to come years later, because they know they need to back up, with the Thrawn trilogy being on the big screen. That's what they're doing. It's clear.
I hope so.
Doing. Yeah.
Thrawn is the best non-force powered villain there is in Star Wars, and out of all of them. And he's one of the best villains, period, especially in Star Wars. I mean, it's probably him and Vader are probably the two best in my opinion. It's my opinion, obviously. But Thrawn's amazing. If you have not read the Thrawn trilogies or any of the Thrawn stuff, go read it. He's a fantastic character.
He is.
And I really hope they kill it. So far, they've been killing it. So I don't have any reason to doubt Favreau. And in reality, no one should really doubt him too much. You know that MCU that everybody loved? He kind of kicked that off.
He did.
That was him in Iron Man 1. He directed that movie.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm happy with it, with the direction they're going, and we just have to go. And yeah, that's right, Thrawn. The fans are telling them to do Thrawn from the beginning, and they didn't listen because Kathleen
Yep.
Kennedy came and said, "Well, what do you expect us to do? We have no comics, we have no 800-page novels, we have nothing to go on. We have to make this up ourselves."
And the best part about
Stupidest
Thrawn
thing.
is they can get their if they want to put a little bit of racism bad in there, Thrawn's perfect for that.
Oh yeah.
Perfect for it. Because he's not human. It's perfect. But they can't get out of their own way. They just can't get out of their own way. They have to agenda 24/7 and then maybe make a movie over here. That's what it is with these people. They're lunatics.
Yeah, and the chat is agreeing with us. And yeah, now A Mandalorian's been a lot of fun, and the fact that it isn't perfect, I think, even makes it better because it shows us
Yes.
that they have room to grow, but yet we're still having a good old time. No, we haven't talked about Santa. We're going to get to that momentarily. I just wanted to get through this nonsense. Do you realize this guy in this article, this writer of books, he was so triggered that he even threw in the fact, yeah, they even replaced the stormtroopers with droids because they didn't want to see Luke killing people. How soft for the kids. Yeah, you idiot. Yeah, of course they did. What the hell's wrong with that?
I think it's a perfectly. They even made it make sense in universe.
They did.
Where the scientists said they solved the human problem or whatever it was, and made them droids, so they didn't have to worry about it anymore.
We got to see Luke crush a droid right in front of us. If that was a stormtrooper, they never could have done that. No way.
No.
So yeah, I don't get this idiot. Of course they did it like that. It's supposed to be family. The hell, man.
Yes. we don't need to see. We all know Luke's killed people, but he's done it only in defense, except for apparently his nephew that he tried to murder.
Yeah, except for that.
Other than that, he's only ever done it in defense or in preemptive defense, meaning he knew he had to. So I have no problem with it. Plus, it was really badass. Just to watch him go from landing his X-Wing to walking through that whole damn ship, just tearing them apart like they weren't even there. Well, they weren't really even there, but you get my meaning. Like they weren't even there. It felt so good. And when I was actually hoping it wasn't Luke, not because I don't want to see Luke do badass things. I knew it was Luke pretty much once he stepped into the shot and you could see his belt. I knew that belt immediately was him in his black outfit. That's his belt.
The lightsaber too, yeah.
And then the lightsaber. Just because I don't want them to touch Luke unless they're going to fix Luke. And the only way for me to do that is to completely decanonize The Last Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
That attempted murder of his nephew in his sleep is unforgivable.
It is.
Unforgivable.
Yeah,
you can't forgive
I don't want those 3 sequels. Even like I said, I want them legend. I want them just like this other thing that just somebody thought up and it was basically a fanfic, and then you just build everything around it. Because I mean, it is so like the character. I know people defend this. The character. This is what could happen. But like, how I pretty much stayed the same way I am in essence since I was basically 13, since, bar mitzvah, I'm not Jewish, but you know what I mean?
I know the truth. I know the truth.
No, now you know the truth. Yeah, I'm part of the houses of Israel. Because I'm Mormon. All of us are. Anyway, what I'm saying is that when I watched, all of us feel this way. It feels like somebody took our heart and kind of squoze it hard, and we went, what?
Yeah.
Because this is a guy, and I wasn't a big Luke Skywalker fan, but he was part of my childhood canon. I was a Han Solo guy. But when they did that, I was like, what in the heck?
They screwed him over too, dude.
Oh, I know. When they killed him off, like his send-off was so like, what? That's pretty quick. Why went they're okay? What? Okay. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't like The Force Awakens. But this film, I thought, okay, maybe we can move into it. When they did this, when Kathleen Kennedy allowed Ryan Johnson to do his little, whatever he did, his little dance and a
he's
giggle.
Not a Star Wars fan.
And that's the thing. Why would you put somebody in charge of a franchise making movie that wasn't even somewhat like, he even admits it. His brother was more into it. Why did they do that? Why? I'm still pondering the thought processes that went on at Lucasfilm and Disney for that matter that let this happen, that let it go out with no plan whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then we have to now look for Dave Filoni and for Favreau to rebuild around this travesty.
Yeah. Well, let's wish him luck, right?
In the franchise. I know. Well, sure, yeah, but I know a lot of people are like, "Why do you get so worked up about this?" I'm like, "Is there anything that you love, that you cared about, that somebody took and just said, well, I'm going to knock the head off"? It was like a figurine or something.
Superman.
Yeah.
And just yeah,
Look what
Superman.
they did to him.
Look what they did.
His dad had sex with his wife, dude. That's pretty messed up.
Look what they did to him. Okay, I'm gonna stop rant. Yeah, just
to back you up, it's not just that we love it; it's that most of us have loved it literally our entire life.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like it's not just like, oh, it was just a movie. No, for the generation that grew up with this in their life, just as a personal story, the first movie my father and I ever went to together, and one of the only ones we've ever gone to, actually, the only ones we've ever gone to together are Star Wars movies, because he watched them when they first came out in the 70s as a young adult, and then he and I obviously grew up liking them, and then we went and watched them when they did the re-releases in the 90s with the special editions, and we went and watched all of them, and then we went and watched all of the prequels except for the last one together, and then when the new one came out, I personally went and asked him to come watch it with me. That's how important Star Wars is in American culture and in world culture for a lot of people, a lot of young men especially. It's a generationally bonding experience. It's not just a movie. It's not just a whatever. Whenever somebody says it's just to this, they're manipulating you. Learn that. Yeah, well, learn how manipulators speak.
It's just a story about wizards and space knights for kids, and I'm no. When I was a kid, in those lines, it wasn't just kids; it was all ages.
Yeah,
and most of them were adults. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, that's fair. Well, it's the first movie my wife ever saw in the cinema. And that's true for many people in my generation. But here's a couple of simple little points. If you look at the new Disney trilogy, it's very clear that Kathleen Kennedy put herself in the movie as Rey, right? There's no other woman is allowed to shine. It's only Rey. It's all about Rey all the time, and you can feel the projection from Kathleen Kennedy in it. And of course, that's a mistake. You don't want to do that. But on the other side of it, with what Favreau is trying to accomplish here, all I can say is I wish him luck. I hope he can work through the nonsense because we know there are enemies around him. He is surrounded.
Yep.
So all we can do is just hope, and I do love his little winks and basically making fun at this stuff. But we need to move on, so let's do that.
Yep.
All right, now go ahead, Thundero.
How Steve Trevor returns in Wonder Woman 1984? Because they're bad writers. That's how.
Yeah. How about this? I don't care. Next.
Actor Leonard Roberts claims race-based tensions led to his firing from Heroes. All
right.
Isn't that show been off the air for like a decade?
This is so topical.
Yeah. So what was it? 20 years ago when this damn show, whatever this show came out, 15 years ago, and now he's got to talk about it. I wonder why, Thundero. Why is it coming up now? Do you think now? Why didn't he mention it then? Why is it now that there were racial tensions, especially because there was a black man and a white woman in bed together? No. Although the very first interracial kiss was back in the 60s between Kirk and O'Hara. You dumbass. Sorry, this triggered me.
Yeah.
I mean, dude.
So it's been off the air since 2010. It started in 2006.
Yeah, so a decade. Like I said.
Decade.
Oh, good lord.
Well, that's true, Elrod.
A little too late.
I'm talking about Mandalorian, though. But yeah, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. It's that this character, they said, a pivotal character in the show. No, he wasn't. He didn't show up until season what? Right? And clearly, she and he had some real issues. Now, she's a messed up chick anyway, so it's probably her fault. But I mean, he didn't come in toward the end anyway. So I don't know what the hell they're on. Oh, it's so controversial. A black man having sex with a white woman. No, not that every black man ever wanted to do, ever. Jesus. It's so
Controversial.
dumb, dude. It's so dumb.
The
Shut
weird
up.
thing is these people actually believe the nonsense caricatures they've created of these horrific people who are just terribly offended at that. There's some people out there who might get offended by it, but you know what? Most of them are black.
Yeah,
That's the truth.
that's true. Yeah, that is
Is
true.
that Allie Landry, the name of the chick?
Don't care even a little. She was a pretty thing, but she was messed up. Yeah, and that's true. Most people would get mad at black people because it is ironic that going after and always chasing the white girl, which seems to be a black dude thing, the trophy of getting the white girl, actually you're hurting your whole racial point if that's a thing for you, right?
Yep.
Whatever. I don't care. I went and married a Japanese. Right.
Well, the funniest part is a lot of and hashtag, of course, not even most of these black people who are real pro-black or whatever and anti-white people. They say that white men have been oppressing us forever. Bud, that was mostly to make white women happy. Just, I'll let you deal with that on your own.
Yeah, fair enough, dude. Fair enough. Anyway, this is dumb. So you know what that means? You know what that means, Thundero?
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I do believe it's come to it. It's
time.
time, sir. It is time. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to our updates on news and stuff. But we got something important we got to do now. We got and if you take offense, that's it's your problem. Okay. Yeah, I think it's time. So I'm going to do it. Here we go. All righty then. So, TFT, Tinfoil Talk. Today we're going to be talking about the legend of Santa Claus. Now, I'm playing good cop today. Thundero's playing bad cop. Okay.
What am I playing?
Not me. Never.
You can be the
Never.
pervert little elf in Bad Santa. That's your job. Oh, goodness gracious. But anyway, so let me go through the happiness, and then we'll get into Thundero and his absolute hate for everything positive.
Coming for that crinkly beard.
He is.
Rip that sucker off.
He is. All right. Well, let's go ahead and let me jump into my little presentation I got here. Well, now, of course, you guys you probably can't see what I'm doing. I should probably come over and redo it. Now you guys can watch it on the other side. Let's leave it like this because then I have to switch everything back and forth. Anyway, so let me just get through it. Now, Nicholas of Baria, Saint Nicholas. He is a very important figure when it comes to Christmas and Santa Claus in general. I'm going to go through a presentation here and kind of show you how we've gotten to our modern Santa Claus. I'm going to leave some more of the older stuff to Thundero. But this guy is kind of important. Now, he actually is bigger than you might think. A lot of people say, oh, he's the patron saint of children and sailors. Well, how did that come to be? But keep more in mind, he's bigger than that. He was actually at the First Council of Nicaea with Constantine when they hammered out what books they were going to put in the Bible and what not. The thundering tyrant that was Constantine demanding that they do what he wanted to do. And they all capitulated, it seems. He was part of the council. So he's not just some little daughter or guy who gave toys to kids to toys. What did I say? Either way works. He's a big figure in the creation of the Catholic Church itself. All right.
Yeah.
Now, how did he come to be attached to these things? Well, it's pretty actually interesting story. This dude drank the Kool-Aid, baby. He was an actual good person who helped people. Shocking, but true. And it all started because he was his parents died when he was young, and he was come under the auspices of his uncle, who was the priest in a constant, at that time where the Byzantine Empire, of course, was starting up in what is to modern day Turkey. His uncle was a local religious leader, and he ended up taking his position later. But what happened was he was a very wealthy guy, you see, but he didn't care much about money himself. He just kind of did what he did. But he noticed that in his town there was a man who had three beautiful daughters. They were quite attractive, but he didn't have the money to pay the dowry, and that was a thing at the time, right? So he was kind of coming to the point he had no choice. He was going to have to sell them into slavery. I don't know how we jumped to that so quickly, but that's the way the story goes. Old Nicholas here, he thought that was pretty sad, but he didn't want to give him the money directly because pride and all that kind of stuff. So what he did is he went in, and this is how the story goes. He dropped it in the chimney, so that a bunch of money, and it fell into the stockings they had warming in the fire. Right? I don't know why you would throw money into a fire, but hey, this is a story. And then they thought, oh, God gave us money, and he was able to pay the dowry for his first daughter. He went and did it a second time for the next daughter later, and then the third time he actually got caught. But the whole time, everyone was talking because they know God didn't give no money to these people, so everyone was kind of chatting about what was going on, and people suspected Nicholas was doing it because he was a really nice guy. But what happened is people started copycatting this action, and there were people giving money to the poor and helping people anonymously all over the city. He created this effect, which was kind of cool, right? And as time went by, he was like, "Oh, screw it! I don't have to do it in secret anymore." And he started doing it publicly. And this guy helped a lot of people in his life. Another thing he really enjoyed doing was traveling. He traveled all over the place. And supposedly he did some miracle where the weather was really bad and a bunch of ships were going to crash against the docks, and he made the weather go away, and it saved everybody. And that story went around for a while. But the stories of Saint Nicholas was so powerful. Well, he became a saint later. That for 1,000+ years, his name was revered for the things he did. And we still talk about him today. So this guy is an actual religious figure who has a good, wholesome story around him. And do keep in mind, he was part of that council that created the Catholic Church and the Bible you read today. So interesting figure, interesting figure. And things went along for quite a while like this, and people kept emulating his generosity and such, until it came to this bastard here, Martin Luther. Yeah, this guy. Now, of course, we have Protestants all over the world these days because of Martin Luther and his edict and his actions and stuff. But he was very much against the whole idea of saints. That's not a good thing. You can't have saints. What are you doing? So he and people love the Saint Nicholas idea, and they were more and more starting to use it, do things during the actual winter celebrations. Christmas was actually before we started having Christmas. They were already kind of attaching their actions to the midwinter festivals, which are around the 25th, of course, because of the whole Venus thing, which I'll get into later. But this guy decided, well, I'm going to change it. We don't want no saints being revered. It should be only baby Jesus. So he actually started using the term Christerkinder or Christkinder, right? And it didn't work because the Europeans were like, no, no, we like St. Nicholas. But this guy was a bit of a tyrant, and there was a lot of death. Understand how many people this guy killed. I'm not going to get into that, but we could do a whole damn show on this guy, right? But nevertheless, people, of course, in other places were mispronouncing this, particularly when it came over to America. It wasn't Christkinder, it was Chris Kringle. That's where the Chris Kringle name comes from, by the way, if you're ever curious of what the hell that means. Well, it's coming out of this guy right here. But his actions to kind of shut down the saintly aspect of activities didn't work. And things carried on. And the real movement of modern Christmas came when the Europeans started coming over in mass into the Americas, right? Because over there, Americans had their own style and their own thing. And there was one guy who's really responsible for the modern Christmas we have, and it's this fella right here, Clement Clark Moore. Of course, you guys know who he is, whether you know his name or not. You have most certainly heard or read yourself many times in your life, the night before Christmas, all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse, etc., etc. Right? He created that, but he didn't do it alone. There was another fellow who came out later because this little poem became instantly popular, so much so that most people in the American colonies could quote it. Right? But later on, about sitting in the 18s, around Civil War time, a little after, this guy here worked for Harper's Weekly, which was a very big magazine in the 19th century in America. His name was Thomas Nass, and he is a cartoonist, an artist. He's a very good one. And all of the modern ideas you have of Santa Claus, the image of Santa Claus, the red outfit, I know a lot of people do the Coca-Cola thing, but I'll get to that in a minute. But the whole thing of the naughty list and his just all the imagery you have of Santa was created by this guy's little cartoons that he would put out in Harper's Weekly. He's really important between these two. Now the interesting thing about it is that Mr. Moore here, the creator of the Saint Nicholas story he made, he was actually a professor in like Greek histories or something like that in New York City. But what he had was thinking about when he made this was, well, yeah, we use Saint Nicholas, and he probably knew exactly because he's a theologian, so he probably knew exactly who Saint Nicholas was and the story of him over in the Byzantine Empire and such. Well, what would become the Byzantine Empire. But he also understood that the majority of Christmas, the Yule that we were celebrating, was Scandinavian. And he understood this, and he wanted to make the comparison more united. Right, so he took the idea, the name of Saint Nicholas, but he started adding things like 8 little tiny reindeer, which of course is talking more about Odin, right? And his horse Sleipnir. As an off note, I don't know if you know this, but Sleipnir has a very interesting story how it came to be. Of course, Odin's mighty war horse that could jump and over every mountain and such and such. Well, there was actually the gods of Asgard wanted to build a wall around Asgard because they wanted to protect themselves. But they were like, "Oh, it's going to take so long. It's impossible." Yada yada yada. But throughout the lands, people knew that the Asgardians wanted, or the Aesir wanted to do this. So a man showed up, said, "I can do it." And I can do it in a year. And they're like, no, no way. And of course, Loki, being Loki, always causing trouble. He said that, let him go ahead and do it. We know he can't finish it. Therefore, about the end, we can just kick him out, and then we can finish it ourselves easier. It was Loki's idea. The gods listened to him, so this guy went about his work, and he had this super mega awesome super horse that would help him pull these large stones and all this kind of stuff. And as the year went by, they were getting close to the end of it, and they were like, "Oh my God, Loki, this guy is going to succeed." Because the problem was what he had asked for was the hand of Freya in marriage, right? And they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to give Freya over to this stupid human. What the hell's wrong with you, Loki?" And so Loki was, panicking as usual, and he had to go over and try to fix it. So what he did was he transformed himself into a beautiful mare, and he got the attention of this mighty super horse that was helping this man. And the horse chased after Loki and went off into the distance. Now, the story of what happened to the man and the walls of Asgard and stuff is enough for another day. But sometime later, Loki came back, and he had a little foal with 8 legs with him. And he gave it to Odin as a gift. And he said, I'm going to give this to you as a gift, but the only stipulation is you can't ask me where it came from. Yeah, yes. Loki had sex with a male horse, and he gave birth to an 8-legged horse. That's what that story means.
Them damn transgender Viking gods,
Yeah,
I tell you.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But anyway, that's what Mr. Moore did. He took a lot of the Odin stuff because I already had it. Most of the stuff in Christmas are Scandinavian, right? I mean, the Yule festival is what it's coming from. And he added a lot of
Yes.
these little elements connecting the actual celebration to the image of St. Nicholas and gave us the night before Christmas when Thomas Nass created the modern image we have. And the whole Coca-Cola thing, do keep in mind that Santa's been wearing red for a very long time. The St.
Hmm.
Nicholas or Kris Kringle, it's not a Coca-Cola thing. However, Coca-Cola embracing it because it's their colors and them being all over the world is probably what's responsible for Christmas being taken all over the world. So Coca-Cola
Yes.
does have something to do with the process. And let me just finish up here with a couple of little points before I let Thundero come in and give his opinions on it. But there have been some really interesting things that have come out of modern Christmas that I think is ironic. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. This is an actual true story of a little girl sending a letter and asking, my friends at school say Santa Claus isn't real. Can you help me? This went all the way to the Catholic Church, who sent her back a letter saying, yes, Santa Claus is real, and explaining it in such a way that talks about the spirit of Christmas. So, yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus is an actual true story. The Christmas tree we have today is very interesting because originally in the old Scandinavian lands, along with Yule, what they used to do is put little gifts on the tree for Odin and the other gods as a shrine, really. And this over time became the where they put presents they give to the kids of food or what have you, but they started getting heavier, so they kind of were put underneath. So they just started decorating the tree itself as a representation of those offerings to the god, and we still have it today. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more because it's kind of interesting with the tree, and I'm trying to do this as succinctly as I can, so please be patient. The Yule log is the funny one for me. The Yule log, of course, is a gigantic tree they would pull into their longhouses that would burn about a couple of weeks or a little less, and so they could survive the damn cold of winter. And that's where the 12 days of Christmas come from, by the way. But look what it's become. It's a damn roll cake. What the hell?
Well, fortunately, mankind evolved a little bit and we invented these things called furnaces. And
Yeah.
we no longer need to just burn wood in our homes to keep warm.
Well, you know what my dad would do every Christmas? He would go out and you could buy those little those logs you put on your fireplace, but they're like fake logs. And they would put Yule log on them, and he'd buy it at the store and just throw it on the fire. I don't know, unless you have a fireplace or my age, you probably don't understand what I'm talking about. But it's a bit peculiar that the Yule log is now a freaking cake, dude. All right, that's all I got to say. But let's get into a couple other points real quick, and then I'll get over to Thundero so I can finish this presentation. The wreath that you have is actually a layover from Roman times. It's the holly plant, right? And it's supposed to bring good luck. Mistletoe also, although it's kind of argued, is really something that seems to be also coming from Roman times with the kisses and things like that, as well as eggnog is another thing that's coming from the Roman times, or just I should just say Saturnalia for those of you who know what that is. But so we do have some people like to say, like in that stupid show Big Bang Theory, they'd always go on about Christmas is just Saturnalia. Not really. There's a couple little points of Saturnalia, but that's it. There's hardly anything to do with it.
Yep.
But so these are Roman things. But let me get to my last point, and then I'll move on. Why do we do it on the 25th of December? Why is that important? It certainly has nothing to do with baby Jesus' birth, because it looks like, if you look at the timelines and stuff, he was probably born in May, right?
Mm.
But we've always had festivals on the 25th of the midwinter festivals are always on the 25th of December, and all over the world throughout history, this is an important day. Why is that? Well, it's because of Venus. You see, Venus is always below the moon's ecliptic, right? And Saturn is always above it. If you ever know anything about cosmology or like go star watching or what have you, you understand this. Well, around the 22nd or so of December, Venus falls so far below the horizon that you can't see it anymore. So it's as if she's dead, right?
Mm.
And then 3 days later, you can see her again. Sound familiar? 3 days of resurrection. This is why the celebration is always held on that time, and it's very old, and I mean very old. And I'm going to show you how old
Yep.
it is in a minute. But here's an interesting little point, though. The ancients talked about Venus being beautiful, that she was a comet and she had hair. That's one of the reasons why she's the only female planet. But they also talked about her being vibrant and fresh of cheek. They would use, which means pink, right? But for the longest time, on the left-hand side, that's the picture of Venus you've been looking at through your childhood in your books. That's Venus. Well, these are more modern pictures came out with better cameras and stuff, very close up to the planet because they send satellites over there. Damned it if she isn't pink. Interesting. Anyway,
Kind of crazy how they knew that, huh?
kind of crazy how
With
they knew that.
allegedly out the ability to see it.
That's right. The last point I want to make is this. We talk about this celebration on the 25th being really old. I mean old. It's pre-human. And this is one of the consternations I have with anthropology in general. We have a lot of evidence to show that the Neanderthal people not only built stone circles and carved out faces in mountains and had all kinds of culture. We also have a lot of evidence that shows us that during this festival they would bring in evergreen trees and burn them in a festival to create this sacred smoke during their ceremony. So, but yet at the same time, anthropologists want to say, "Oh, they're just dumb hunter gatherers." Please, please bite me. All right. But the thing with it is, Christmas, or at least the midwinter festivals on the 25th, are older than humans are. Right. So
Yep.
this is a really ancient thing. Anyway, that's my little presentation. I have. So thank you. All righty.
Claps.
That's very nice, Chester.
Thank you.
Claps for Chester. Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm doing clicks. I don't want to trigger anybody.
Yeah, that's true.
As the great Chester Cornelius Busby III just hinted at, Santa Claus and Odin are the same being.
They are.
Now, what I mean by that is the name Santa Claus has nothing to do with Odin. That comes from Saint Nicholas. Sinterklaas is where Santa Claus came from. But everything we know about him in modern day and the holiday we use to celebrate, or we're supposed to use it to celebrate Jesus as Christians, but that the world uses to celebrate with him as the representative of, pretty much all of that is coming either directly from Scandinavia or might as well be coming from Scandinavia because it was altered heavily once the Nords got their hands on a lot of it. So a good example, there's numerous examples, I'm going to go over a lot of them. I mentioned it the other day. Another name for Santa Claus is Father Christmas. A lot of Europeans call him Father Christmas and not Santa Claus. That is quite literally another name for Odin. They would call him the Yule Father, which Yule is the same holiday. It's different, same day, everything. The Yule log, as Chester hinted at, was they would cut down a giant oak tree and bring it into their longhouses and burn it for weeks at a time. The log was the Yule log. They did it around the same time. Yule was actually a 12-day celebration, roughly. It went from, I believe, the middle of December until the early January, or what we would consider early January. And it was basically the celebration of the end of fall and the end of plenty into winter, which was long and dark. And the point of it was largely to try and, hence why we use stars and lights, to try and coax or call forth or celebrate the coming of the dawn, the coming of spring. Odin, the reason why Odin is Santa Claus, and it's basically irrefutable if you just look at the similarities, is because he was the wanderer god. His job or not his job, but something he did often, even when he was in exile, was he wandered, and he went and looked and hunted for knowledge. He also, during this time, and really all year long, but during this time especially, was engaging in something anybody who's played Witcher 3 will understand, the wild hunt. The wild hunt was basically where him and the gods and all the other good forces of the universe would hunt out and try and eradicate evil, but they would also reward the good. So during this time and before this time, people would quite literally, and not literally write letters, but about as well as you could at the time, make offerings to Odin and to the other gods, but specifically Odin, for good fortune during Yule, because it was considered the most magical time of the year, or one of them. And this is where we get the very idea of a Christmas list or making wishes for Christmas. It's also largely where the idea of Santa being both a rewarder for good behavior and a disciplinarian for bad behavior comes from. That didn't come from St. Nicholas. He didn't do that. That came from Odin and his wild hunt, where he would go around the world and reward people who were good and righteous and punish the wicked. And not just people, spirits, what have you. Whatever they could get their hands on. Another example, and there's going to be many of these examples, he talked about his horse. Odin's horse had 8 legs. Odin also rode around, like he said, on a leaping horse. We say flying because it was effectively flight, but it actually just leaped really, really high. Santa Claus, allegedly, according to the legend, has 8 reindeer. It's interesting that they have the exact same amount, 8, and now 9 with Rudolph, but he wasn't always part of the plan. 8 legs became 8 reindeer, and what have you, as the legend grew and morphed away from the mythological religious origins into a more really a secular spiritual mixture of secularism and spirituality that Santa Claus, the modern Santa Claus, has become. There's other examples. The mistletoe, Chester brought it up. It has ties back to the Romans and the wreaths and all of that have ties back to there. But the Nords were also doing that long before the Romans came to them and tried to conquer them. The Germanics, so the ancient Germanics, they were doing wreaths and things around this time. They put lights on them with candles and what have you for the same reason. They would also take a big one, set it on fire, and roll it down a hill during the Yuletide festival. This was to represent the sun. Because again, the point of this festival was a rally cry against the coming darkness. Because winters in Scandinavia and in Germania were really, really brutal. They were very hard to survive, and that's why many people didn't survive them every year. So they had all these festivals and this merriment before they had to go into the long, dark winter. Another example is the mistletoe. He brought it up. Also, the mistletoe was used by Loki as a poison to kill Balder. And if you read the rest of that legend, at the end of it, mistletoe becomes a symbol of love. Because if you know the Balder legend, it's actually a happy story. And it becomes a symbol of love. And that's why we get the idea of kissing under the mistletoe. That's one of the places it comes from. It actually comes from a few different places, which would hint that there's an even older legend that it's driven by. Whatever that may be, we don't know. But it is in a few different places around the Mediterranean and up into the North and Central Europe have a similar belief that mistletoe and romance are linked, even though mistletoe is technically a poison. That's another example. There's many, many, many other examples. For a long time, Santa was depicted as riding a flying horse. It wasn't until, I believe, the poem itself came out the night before Christmas that it was changed, at least as it was popularized in the common people's ideas to the reindeer. I'm fairly certain, from what I was researching anyway, that's pretty much the consensus, is that was what changed it. That poem became really popular and everybody just kind of went along with it.
Yeah.
But before that, he rode a horse, just like Odin's. It didn't have 8 legs. At least I've never seen any depictions of 8 legs, but it was a powerful horse that he could jump through the sky with and deliver gifts and deliver coal or whatever version of it you have, because different countries and different areas have different versions of basically the same idea. You get something real bad if you were bad. Odin, like I said, was the god of war, of wisdom, of magic, of outlaws, weirdly. He was also the king of the gods. He was many different things to the Norse, but he is a very ancient deity. He was around long before the Norse, as we understand them, the Vikings, existed. We know this because at least 2 BC, the Romans had started to make headway into Germania, and they, in their historical writings, talk about the god, which we would come to call Odin. It had a different name then in Latin that I can't pronounce, but it's the exact same deity. It has the same trappings, everything. The name's just a little different because the language was different. As the language evolved, it went from Wotan to Odin, and here we are. This deity is extremely old. We don't know how old. There's just no way to know because there's not good records from that part of the world for this time frame. Some have suggested, like Chester did earlier when we were talking about it, that he might even be as old as the oldest of gods recorded, because he's from that area. The stories around him in the northern European area are largely the same or very similar, which is something you expect of a deity that's shared among multiple different people. So I genuinely think that it's really hard to look at this evidence, and there's even more than I've listed here. I'm not going to go into all of it, but there's a lot of evidence that what we consider Santa Claus, it's just Odin, and it always was. Saint Nick was something the Catholics kind of bolted onto him, kind of hodgepodged him together to make him something more amicable for both the pagans and the Christians. So, they weren't always trying to kill each other, which they were still doing that anyway, so I don't know if that worked. But there was a lot of bloodshed around the time. Now, all of this is largely immaterial. You think Odin's a good guy, right? He's the king of the Asgardian gods, noble and wise, the seeker of truth, something that the Scandinavians and the Nordics and the Germanics and the Celts took forward into their culture, even when they abandoned the old gods. This idea to seek truth, and truth is very valuable, and you should always be seeking it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Santa Claus was a rapist. And he was an unrepentant rapist. He did not feel sorry for what he had done. In fact, he felt fully satisfied with himself, even though he was punished by the other gods for it. There's a story of a young lady. Her name is Rindir. And long story short, Odin wanted to have sex with her because she was very beautiful. Well, he looked around, and he, being Odin, being smart and wise, he came up with a plan. The first plan was to show up as this mighty warrior and woo her with his charm and his charisma and the fact that he's, a mighty warrior. And what woman would say no to that? Well, she did twice. She shot him down 2 times. So Odin, being a devilish entity, decided that he wasn't going to give up. And he effectively cast a spell on her, driving her insane. He then transformed himself into a woman, an old lady, I think named Welsh or Wench, something like that. And she was supposedly a medicine woman because Odin obviously could do things because he's Odin. And eventually, through a little bit of maneuvering and manipulation, he got himself alone with her as she was still completely crazy. He then put her in basically a coma magically and had his way with her. From this, a child was born. That child would go on to kill Odin's favorite son, basically, and yada yada yada. The rest is mythological history. However, after it, the other gods found out what he had done, and they also found out that he was using what we would call dark magic. They had other terms for it, but effectively magic even he wasn't supposed to be using because they're so evil, so wrong. And because of this, Odin stepped down as king of Asgard. The stories vary. Some say it was a decade. Some say it was 1,000 years. I believe, and I think I couldn't find it. I tried finding it again, but it was in an old book that I found online that I read, where a scholar put forth the idea that the mythology of the wild hunt and the gift giving and all of that is a direct penance, if you will, even though he wasn't repentant, but was imposed on Odin to give gifts and to punish the wicked because of what he did. But as I said, Santa Claus, Odin, was a rapist, and he was not repentant of it. He had no shame for it. He felt he was totally entitled to do what he did, and that is who, whether we like it or not, we celebrate when we put up these big ho-ho-hos. Well, Santa apparently liked him some ho-ho-hos a little too much. That is, to me, when I figured all this out and realized where this whole thing came from as a younger man, it was one of the reasons I went away from the commercialized version of Christmas. The other reason was religious beliefs. It always felt wrong with me how commercialized what's supposed to be a religious celebration has become. I think that it's a tragedy that this character has been so lionized in modern culture. And it's just because people not only don't know, but they don't really care because they don't make the connection because our cultures are so different. If I was more of a spiritual person, which I consider myself fairly spiritual, but if you want to get down to the nitty gritty, if I was the devil and I wanted to disparage the idea of celebrating Jesus' birth, I can't think of a better way than to take the attention away from Jesus and put it on a character derived from a rapist.
Yeah, I guess
I'm
that's
just saying.
fair. That's
I'm
fair.
just saying, if I was going to do it, that seems pretty devilish to me. Okay. All right.
So everybody remember, not Santa Claus, Satan Claus.
Satan Claus. Okay, so all right. Well, it is an interesting story, and of course, it is part of the Odin story. It depends. Now, the interesting thing with that is, even when the Catholics came into Europe and started messing with everything, they actually messed with that story in the opposite direction. Because
Yep.
Hodor, yes, the Game of Thrones Hodor, as if you thought all of that was originally thought up by the dude who wrote it, is the son that came out of that union. Well, that was written out by the Catholics, and he was just another son of Odin and Frigg. It's
Yep.
interesting that they did that, because that's not the original story at all, and it's actually darker than Thundaro had said. Not only did he disguise himself as a medicine woman and come in and give her drugs and stuff, he actually got her husband, the king, to tie
Yep.
her down.
Yep. Well, I wasn't going to go into the full darkness of how, and then the husband also engaged in it so that she wouldn't know that the son was a child of Odin. Like, it was pure evil. There's no,
It is bad.
if we had a person who did something like this around today, everybody would want them executed. Like, it was evil to its core. There's no question. And to me, it once because I've always loved mythology. I've always loved Norse mythology and Egyptian mythology, especially. Those are the two that I've really been big on. And when I started studying Odin, I think most people just think of Odin as basically Zeus, right? He's the Greek or the Norse version of Zeus and whatnot. But granted, Zeus has done some really terrible stuff too. Um, but that story I just went, whoa! And the people still celebrated him every year. It was just a totally different culture. I don't know how to explain it, but to me, it's an unforgivable. That'd be an unforgivable sin for someone to commit today, in my opinion. Maybe
No,
God
sure.
can forgive him, but I couldn't. I don't think I could do it.
Well, it's an actual interesting analogy as well, because we have many supposed virgin births by gods, right?
Yeah.
The Christian one, of course, is taking off of that same concept. And we have many others. And a lot of times they'll use the word virgin birth not to mean that she's actually a virgin, but just that a god laid with her. The
Mm-hmm.
Christians, of course, sanitized it as they always do, going back to St. Nicholas and that Nicaea council that they had. They did quite a bit of that in there. But there are
Mm-hmm.
many examples of the virgin birth throughout history and mythology. Many, 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 many. It is one of the most common themes we see, but no one talks about it, right? And of course, Odin, he did some bad things and he did some good things. I do personally think it's very interesting because the oldest version of that story is actually the story of Enlil that we know of anyway. And it's not exactly the same. It's a little bit different, but the results are the same, right? He was punished and he had to make amends, and he did various things to make amends, as did Odin have to do. But it kind of falls into line with some of our old fairy tales. Everything has been sanitized today. Everything is this goody
Mm-hmm.
two shoe type of thing, and you can blame it. Everyone blames it on the Protestants. But here's the thing: a lot of those old stories, the Protestants told them as they were,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the Protestants were, well, basically they're ultra orthodox is what they are, right? So they're against changing things. So it's very interesting to me that people always want to throw that at the doorstep of the Protestants. And because in truth, the people who sanitize stuff are the Jews.
Yeah.
See how I did that?
It always comes back, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Uh,
But it's true though. It's a lot of the Jewish creators and stuff like that, especially in America, that sanitize everything. And I don't know why they did that. Because, like I said, the
yeah.
Catholics did it early on too, but the Protestants were a throwback to an orthodoxy. And a lot of those old, Grimm fairy tales, Aesop fables, they're pretty dark, dude. and the Protestants had no problem putting them out. It wasn't until things started coming to America, and especially toward like the end of the 19th century, that everything started becoming ultra sanitized. So you've never heard about these Odin stories. You've never heard about the fact that people were basically just taking turns on Snow White, et cetera, et cetera, or Sleeping Beauty. It's the same character. But that's where we are today, and it's interesting to me because this whole progressive culture, these so-called SJWs, they are the most sanitizing of all sanitizers. Everything must be sanitized with them. Every single little thing. It's the ultimate expression of that concept, right? And if you think I'm kidding, you go back and research it and see where a lot of the sanitation started. It started with Jewish newspapers, and later Jewish radio, and then later Jewish movie companies and cartoon companies and stuff like that. They're the ones that really started pushing sanitation. That is one of the reasons why Walt Disney had so much damn trouble. You know how hard it was for him to get a hook in and get going and finally have success? It took so long. And the whole time he was getting crap from people constantly because he didn't sanitize things. It was very kid friendly, but he was just telling the stories without, of course he couldn't have sex in a kid movie or stuff like that. But he put innuendo and he put stuff in, and he took a lot of crap from these people who want to ultra sanitize everything. And these days, kids don't even understand the stories. Look at it. Shit, fucking Red Riding Hood lives in the damn story now.
Yeah. And that's a tragedy, really. That's I don't know the main culprit or whatever behind it. It doesn't really matter, but it's something we need to correct in our culture. We cannot take away brutality and tragedy. They're incredibly important because that's the default state of the world. Christians used to understand this. Every religion used to understand this. Pretty much every culture understood it. That the world's a cold, brutal place that wants to kill you. Period. The planet Earth, if left to its own devices, would end human civilization tonight. Yeah. The only thing that stops it now, the older peoples would have believed, the gods are what protect us, or what preserve us, what keep us from, chaos, or keep us from the devil, or keep us from our own sinful natures, or whatever their interpretation of it was. But what they're saying is this world will destroy you, and it wants to destroy you. Its death is inevitable for a reason. It's because this planet doesn't like us very much.
Oh no, Mother Nature wants your ass, dude.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why these stories were so brutal. The world isn't a clean-cut, neat little place where things just always work out in the end and the good guys win. That's just not reality. I mean, it's nice to have every now and again, but if you're going to tell a story to a child that's meant to propel them forward as a person, there's got to be some hardship in it. There's got to be some real struggle in it, because that's life. That's real life. That's what life's going to be.
It is true, yeah. Now, Joe Marone says Disney did sanitize things, though. Mary Poppins, for example. Well, he had to create a family-friendly thing. True. So there is some sanitation going on. But like in Mary Poppins, for instance, the innuendo is that the father is having alcohol problems, right? I mean, he doesn't say it directly, but it's insinuated. Many things are insinuated through Walt Disney stuff. He can't put it harshly on there. There's censors and all kind of stuff going on. There's no way he could, and nor did he want to. He was creating a family-friendly thing, but he at least would leave the feeling of it in, where things have been completely sanitized now. Like for instance, Slick, tell people what the moral of Little Red Riding Hood is, please. Slick.
Is he here?
He's muted.
Slick may have died. Which version? The original version or the modern version?
The original.
Don't fuck around in the woods and obey the rules of your local woodsman. Fuck, that's what it's about.
No, it's listen to your parents.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
No, it's about no going to the woods.
No,
the woods will fucking eat you up.
Listen to your parents is the moral of the story.
I know. I'm just fucking with you, God.
And the fact that
he's gotta be so serious. He's like, it's listen to your parents. No. Listen to your parents. Don't touch the fucking hot grill. Don't run into the street. Don't go in the fucking woods.
Yes, this is true. It's true. But that's why she gets eaten in the end. She dies because she doesn't listen to the wisdom of her mother, right? And many stories were like that. They were set up to teach children a lesson. That's why they're fairy tales.
Well, the other thing is when we go back to like the Odin story with reindeer, the reason why think as you just said, I alluded to, I didn't understand why. I actually do. The reason that they have these stories and with these gods and what have you, these tragic, terrible things that some of these gods did, like someone mentioned in the chat, Hercules killing his own family, is because that is to show you the negative aspects as well as the positive. What I mean by this is gods are supposed to be representations of extremes. They are the manifestation of whatever. Pick a thing, and there's probably a god for it at some point. Wine or wood, or just pick something. They are the manifestation of that, and then in that manifestation, they almost always take that to the extreme of it.
Yeah.
So Odin is the one hunting for knowledge, right? He wants knowledge at all costs. He doesn't care about anything else really, as long as he can get his fix with knowledge, to the point he ripped out his own eye to try and get more knowledge from the other world,
and
from the other
booty.
side. Yes, yes. So he was obsessive about knowledge and things of this nature. So they didn't want to just show you all of the benefits to that, where you become, generally speaking, you become a wise person. If you chase after truth and knowledge, usually you'll become a much wiser person than you were before. That's the point of Odin. That's why the god of truth and the pursuit of truth, rather, was their supreme being, because in their culture, you were supposed to always be going, always be growing, never stop, never try, never rest and think that's enough. Keep pushing yourself, and it's one of the reasons they became one of the strongest forces in the history of the world as a cultural force, especially in that northern European area, and why that was eventually morphed into, I think, the attitudes that led to the Renaissance, where that was a big thing as well. Truth, finding the truth, more knowledge, more and more, and it just kept becoming an obsessive thing. So my point is when you have a being that's supposed to be an exemplary, knowledge, wisdom, the hunt of it, and then you show them do something absolutely depraved that nobody could condone, he was doing the same thing. The reason why he was unrepentant is because in his mind he had justified that anything he could do, anything he wanted, as long as it gained him more knowledge. It was perfectly reasonable. And they were trying to show a dichotomy there of using it for good and using it for evil, because the old gods, at least most of them, weren't considered beings of good or evil. They just were. They just existed. Like nature itself just exists. So they didn't have this moral black and white situation with their gods. And like most people in the West would with God, God, we would consider him, or you're supposed to consider him, as all good all the time. He doesn't do evil. If he does something that would normally be evil, when he does it, it's good. Things of this nature. They didn't have that with theirs. No. If they did something bad, it was something bad. And they would just tell the truth about it, because the truth was more important than their feelings, I guess, would be the best way to put it. And that's why those stories, the grim fairy tales, were so dark. And that's why the stories of some of the old gods were so brutal and vicious. And the Greek tragedies still resonate throughout the world today, because they're trying to tell you a truth about life, about existence.
Yeah.
Whether it's, and that's not always pleasant and sunshiny. Sometimes that's the long, dark winter. Sometimes that's what it is.
It is fair, and of course the Asians killed their gods.
Yes.
Let's see. Chiron mentions cannibalism of the Titans. Well, dude, Loki tricked the gods into eating a person. Zeus was tricked into eating a person, and he cursed the guy who did it, the Lord who did it. That's where the werewolf story comes from, by the way. There's many examples of gods eating people. Many. But anyway, let's leave on a happy note. As you see, I have up here Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And just remember, St. Nicholas, he was a nice guy.
Yes.
He really was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine that. So,
and, at the Council of Nicaea, they cut out a lot of stories about our God.
Oh, they did. They cut a lot of stuff out of Nicaea, dude. They cut out half the damn book. They cut out.
There were tales about Christ that he just said, they just hand waved.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it took us what
Whether they were real or not, I mean, is up
well,
in
yeah, but it
is
took
questionable. But
1,700 years for or a little less than that for us to find them again, right? Particularly the
Most
Gnostic
of them,
yeah.
stories.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Anyway,
nobody
it
wants us to talk about that when you get Christian because it gets a little bit weird.
well
We
they
can
don't
do it.
like it. Yeah.
Hey, if we're gonna do one next, are we gonna do a show next week?
Next week we can. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We can do it. We can do the ultimate conspiracy theory, the Bible.
Oh
Oh
Jesus, dude,
boy.
that's a
Oh boy.
series. That's a
Oh boy.
series.
And what I mean by that, I just mean the books that most people recognize, the 66 books, or if you're one of the other versions of Christianity, you might have more or a little bit less. But regardless, most Americans, the 66 books of the Bible, the King James Bible is most
You
Protestants
ever
would
wonder why it was
use.
that number?
Yeah, it's a pretty strange that it's 66, which is an unholy number, but we can get into that
Yeah.
next week.
But you know, you got to watch it though. I'll go all Septuagint on you, dude.
Do it.
We could do a series on the Bible, and you guys could take whatever angle you like. Me personally, I'd rather go on where did those books originally come from. That would be more
Mm.
interesting to me,
No,
because they
it's
all
that's
have
a
their
very interesting
historical.
topic.
Yeah,
And
no.
why was the Apocrypha cut out? Why was there this big gap in between the
Well,
end of the Old
because
Testament
Constantine
and
was a frickin' tyrant. That's why.
well, and that's what I'm saying. Like what? And now today they say, well, that's canon. I hear. I mean, a lot of my friends and in my family as Mormons and outside as Christians, they just hold the Council of Nicaea as those what guys they knew what they were talking about, and I'm like, well, that was a long time after any of the
Yeah,
apostles were around. So
hundreds of
what the
years.
fuck? If the book was closed, the book was closed then. Well, how come they're deciding what's closed at that time? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't believe in a closed book. If you're going to believe in God, God's going to be speaking to people, whatever dispensation we are in.
Well,
I can
yeah,
take
but
it. I can take it, and I can give everybody a preview right now. I can delegitimize the entire Bible with the Bible and still keep Christ as the center. I'm gonna
yeah,
do
no,
it
And
next
you
week.
that's
can do
fine.
that.
Like
You can do that. But of course, keep in mind the Septuagint came out of the Council of Nicaea, and that was centuries after the event, supposedly, right?
yeah,
Yes.
I mean, if we want to do this, but you're right, Chester. That's not a one show
No,
thing.
no.
And this
Although,
is coming from me. I still consider myself a believer in Jesus Christ. I don't consider myself a Christian. I'll get into why next week. But I have full faith in Jesus as the entity, the God, whatever you want to call it. That's where my faith is. That's where my spiritual heart is. Um, but I can still invalidate pretty much all of the Bible with just the words coming from Jesus Christ.
I have a
It's
feeling that
real easy.
yeah, I have the feeling that Jubases won't like it very much because
No.
it's all their fault. Anyway, we do need to get out of here. I gotta jump. But Chiron says something very cool in here. He says, my dad actually owned one of the few King James Bibles in existence, the original printing of the German printing press. That's pretty cool, dude. That is
Yeah,
cool.
that is cool.
Yeah.
That was probably worth a lot of money, buddy.
Bet you it is. Yeah, that's neat though. Because that is a rarefied thing. But anyway, we got to go. We'll get into that next week. I guess we're going to start a Bible series next week. Vacation Bible School. Winter
We're gonna
version.
be in competition with old Mike S. Miller.
Oh, gee. Oh,
Uh-oh.
that would rip him right off, wouldn't it? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Love you,
This
Mike.
might be the last official
Spaghetti-o.
drawn and quartered fan ultimate, whatever it's called, edition. Might be this week, so
Love you, Mike. Anyway, you guys, thank you very much. Certainly, Merry Christmas. Do keep in mind that this week there is nothing coming. I am doing I do have time to do the D&D game on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to do that. I don't have time tomorrow. I was hoping I would be, so there will be no comics books tomorrow, comic book news, and we're not doing Drawn a Quarter either for the holidays. So we will literally see you either on Tuesday if you want to come watch that, or next Sunday, which we're going to start our Bible series, which should be fun. Bible Talk Fan Edition. Yeah, no, it's going to going to be great. So you guys have yourself a great week. Enjoy your family. Ignore the idiots that are in charge of shit because they're not in charge of themselves. So who cares what they say? Have fun with your family. Get together. Have your turkey or your roast or whatever the hell is you eat on Christmas. Just make sure it isn't hummus. Don't do that. Don't do that. So let these guys get their final word and we'll get out of here. Go ahead, Slick.
I'm just going to say have the merriest of Christmases, and hopefully this next new year will be better than last. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I only have to say two things. One, celebrate Christmas. You don't be like me. I don't want the world to be as bitter about Christmas as me. I want the world to love Christmas. I'm married to a woman who's crazy about Christmas. Her whole family's crazy about Christmas. I love that they are, even if I don't want it for myself. So if it's important to you, go have fun. Be with your family. Don't listen to these tyrants who tell you not to. Be with your family. Let them come arrest you. It's worth it. There's few things in life worth it more than that.
Oh, yeah.
And two, I'm not going to wish that we have a happy new year because I did that last year, and holy crap, did I step on the wrong juju bean and just, woo, I jinxed the whole world. So this year, I hope we have the worst year in the history of humanity next year. I want this planet gone by the end of it. Hopefully I'm going to reverse that psychology here.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
There you go. That is sound psychology right there. That is good. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll check you out next week. Later.
Bye-bye.